this way and good. So, people believe that the Bible is literal history. And because the Bible has the story of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, at least Abraham and Jacob, section 132 adds Isaac, had polygamy, that therefore it was believed that polygamy was ordained of God. And certain religions have used that excuse after Constantine turned the Bible into literal history by creating Christianity and creating Jesus as the Christ. That is important context to know and understand, that there is no justification for polygamy unless you want to turn humans back into animalistic behaviors. I saw a science report in which 93% of mammals are polygamous. They breed with multiple partners over the lifespan. And humans, because of Constantine's religion, altered the animalistic practice of human nature, to be monogamous, and in fact even be abstinence only. So that monastic practice, which obviously does not work, as the scandals in the Catholic Church have demonstrated for us. And so the polygamy from the Bible is not really polygamy, because they are Jewish literature, the learning of the Jews, manner of prophecy, books of Revelation. They are symbols, types and shadows of the future Christ prophesied in Deuteronomy 18:15 through 19, whom Joseph Smith says is our Christ, and says he's going to be a Mormon to restore Joseph Smith's church, as well as restore the ancient kingdom of David, as well as the original back to Adam. And so the symbol is he's gonna have a couple of divorces. Notice there are twos that are involved with the symbolism. That's important to know, because when you're doing scientific research and study, you look for patterns. And this is one of the patterns, is that the ones who are polygamous often have twos. And even Jacob, he has Rachel and Leah, and then they have their slaves to assist them, sister wives, as they're now called. And so because you guys have been good boys and girls, you've not watched, because the church ordered you not to, the TV show Big Love. Big Love was about a Utah polygamous family that is a branch off from the LDS Church, but is a total fiction creation. But you see them interact with Mormons, as he even has an office meeting where you see the Temple Square and the temple in the background. But his daughter also befriends a Mormon girl, as the two of them try to convert each other to each other's religion. Hilarious, Amanda Seyfried. And so you therefore need to be educated on how polygamy works, how it's supposed to be run, and what the church is planning on doing in the millennium when they win and conquer America and establish their kingdom of Deseret. Restoring it from Brigham Young, not from Joseph, not from David, not from Adam. But we'll get into that here. And so polygamy was against the law in the United States. It was back then, in the 1800s. The various states had laws condemning the practice. And so it was illegal. If you got caught practicing polygamy, you were locked up. A lot of the Salem witch trial cases were because the man got caught with the other woman, and so to protect himself, he either accused his wife of being a witch, or the woman he had an affair with as being a witch. And one of the ancestors of Joseph Smith, I think it's grandfather or great-grandfather, was involved in the Salem witch trials to testify against aunts, something like that. I have to refer back to it, but the Smiths were anti-polygamous. That needs to be known and understood right at the beginning here, as the Book of Mormon condemns polygamy 5 times. Joseph Smith's Doctrine and Covenants of 1835 had a whole chapter on monogamy condemning polygamy, as well as Joseph Smith also had a discourse in which he was talking to a monogamous couple, informing them that when they get sealed, they will be exalted in the highest degree of the celestial kingdom. And Brigham Young had that gutted when he put in section 132. We'll get to that one, but just understand section 132 has Brigham Young's fingerprints all over it. Linguistic fingerprints. It was not by Joseph. And it's 1832 when it supposedly was in the works, even though he says 1843. There's some keys to patterns that you recognize something fishy is going on. And you're supposed to go, wait a minute, I'm not just going to easily believe whatever is being told to me. Right, ex-Mormons? And so Heber C. Kimball, in 1829, was sealed to a second wife. Not sealed, but married, had sex with, had a baby with a second wife. And he didn't join the church until 1832, and so he was not affiliated with the church whatsoever. This was on his own. He was practicing polygamy in secret. Heber C. Kimball. Now you have to go to the actual family genealogy to find that truth, because publicly the church makes sure you don't know about her. There's a reason why. Because Joseph Smith was anti-polygamy. And so if Heber C. Kimball was known to be a polygamist when the missionaries came to him and gave him the Book of Mormon, and I think Samuel Smith, wasn't it? They would have rejected him from being a Mormon. Saying, I'm sorry, you can't be polygamous and join our church. But he joined the church. So how did he join the church with a polygamous wife? It's because he did it in secret. He lied. Lied to the bishop and the stake president and the mission president and the elders who interviewed him. That's an anachronism joke. You don't put current practices into the practices of the past when they didn't exist. And thus the joke. And if I have to explain the joke, it's no longer funny. But, and so the group called the Danites were the ones that were practicing polygamy like Heber C. Kimball, because Heber C. Kimball and Brigham Young were the leaders of the Danites. They were the ones who went around as missionaries in the 12, giving people the Book of Mormon, telling them it's Christian and Jesus is the Christ, saying it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They were the ones who were converting these Danites to the church, and they were practicing polygamy in secret. And they were blaming Joseph that Joseph approved, everything's fine. Shh, keep it a sacred secret, though. Don't let anybody know. Don't mention it even to Joseph, because, you don't want anybody to know. So when John C. Bennett gets busted for polygamy, adultery, and is excommunicated by Joseph Smith for it, he goes back to the Danites saying, hey, I'm out of the church now. I can't help you in the first presidency anymore. And they, no, get out of here. You're going to blow our cover. And so he had to go and form his own Illuminati church. These patterns that you're supposed to go, but and so when Brigham and Heber had Joseph murdered because they couldn't lock him away, even though they did coup the leadership of the church in 1838, Brigham Young was finally able to start his own church. And he had Willard Richards do marriage entries going back to 1843 when Heber C. Kimball married number 3, for example. And of course they had to blame Joseph for it. He's now dead and can't speak for himself and condemn the practice. And so others, as Brigham was preparing to go west to flee the country because of the crimes his Danites had caused and the wars and the problems with the government that his Danites had caused, he had taken advantage of the women to have them sealed to him or his 12, and those who didn't really want to or were not wanted to be were sealed to Joseph Smith. Understand this, ex-Mormons? This is where it comes from. Desdemona Fulmer is my third great aunt, and we know in the family that it was after Joseph Smith was dead that all of these sealings took place. So Joseph Smith had no sexual relations with her. He was not sealed to her during his lifetime. It was Willard Richards, under the orders of Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball, who did the documents and let them know about it. And there was probably a proxy sealing performance as well, just for the show of it. But regardless, Brigham Young gets to the Salt Lake Valley. He's still practicing it in secret. The general membership, who are not Danites and are not extorted for this practice, are unaware. And these are the ones who Brigham Young had brought from his mission in Europe and other locations to join them on the Pioneer Trail. And so they were in the dark as to the practice of polygamy that was going on. And they went with Brigham Young, not because it's the one true church and legally succeeding Joseph Smith. No, it's because he had been the one lying to people about the name of the church and what the church was all about. And so in 1851, that's when he publicly declared the open practice of polygamy. And everybody now was required to be polygamist in order to be exalted. And this was a big middle finger to the United States, who had taken away his kingdom in 1848. 1849, he did the Perpetual Immigration Fund to human traffic the converts from Europe. And so then in 1851, practice of polygamy, and then Adam with his multiple wives in that same Adam God theory discourse. And so FLDS Church, for example, believe in Adam as Heavenly Father, as well as practice polygamy because of Brigham Young. And so despite Mormon apologists trying to excuse it as, truth isn't true, reality isn't real, church is still true, though. Trust us. They really play you guys for dumb. It's amazing. And so the United States doesn't want the practice to be practiced. And they're battling it back and forth, trying to get the church to stop. And in 1887, the Edmunds-Tucker Act succeeds, shuts down the church for good. And so 1832 came out in Brigham Young's Doctrine and Covenants the year before he died. And he did this specifically to try to preserve the practice of polygamy. And in section 132, he has what's called the Law of Sarah in section 60 or verse 65, right near the end. And it's the practice of the man gets to choose his first wife, and then she is required to present him with the upwards of 10 virgins. Although he says earlier on that if a man desires 10 virgins, that it's okay, God approves. But he even says earlier than that only he, Brigham Young, the president of the church, is authorized to approve them in the first place. So there's some contradictions that Brigham Young is not thinking through here, as he's just blurting out whatever's coming to the top of his mind while he's in the brothel that he created there in Regent Street, getting drunk off of the beer he's producing for the brothel. That's always how it is with philosophers. And so, yeah, this is... I can't believe ex-Mormons have fallen for this. How you can't recognize that this is just completely fraudulent. But Brigham Young had set it up to murder any and all of the polygamous wives who are disobedient and want to leave and get divorced. And because of the United States, Brigham Young was not able to carry this out. He was not able to murder any of his ex-wives. He had to let them go because of the United States. And one such wife, the year before he put this in, which is inspired for the murder part, she had him locked in jail for non-support. Oh, she rocks. But that infuriated him and probably caused his death. But this is what you need to understand for what's coming in the future, guys, is that the church will only restore polygamy when the government of the United States is destroyed and the church gets full reign again of their kingdom. And in 1978, there was obviously blacks being allowed into the priesthood again. Brigham Young took it away, and into the temples for sealings. And you need to know that in October, or November, one of the two, the United States Congress repealed, just out of the blue, oh, here's a law from the olden days, let's repeal it. No, there was some bargaining going on, some quid pro quo, where the church said, fine, we'll let blacks in if you will repeal the Edmunds-Tucker Act. And so the church had to do it first, then the United States agreed and they negated the Edmunds-Tucker Act. setting the way for polygamy. This is what the church has got planned the whole time. They're restoring polygamy. Bruce R. McConkie, Mormon doctrine. Polygamy is going to be practiced when Jesus comes for the second coming. And remember, he doesn't exist. He's not coming. It's all coded traps of the Danite manner of speech, the secret words, secret signs, death penalties, for the restoring of the practice of polygamy, for the millennial reign of peace. And so you need to know this is real. It's going to happen if they win and not get locked up for the millennial reign, as prophecy says they're going to be. It's not actual Lucifer who's going to be in chains. It's prophecy, guys. These are symbols. Great and abominable church is supposed to fall, and the leaders are supposed to be locked up. And it's just not going to happen because the government's all in on it. It's very annoying that they won't listen to me when I'm begging and pleading them with February 7th coming around. And so, as we have witnessed from the little clips I've been doing for 2009's April General Conference, we are getting a glimpse at how they're going to implement polygamy for the millennium. Obviously, they're going to restore the death penalty. There will be no stopping them this time. You don't like it, women? You're dead. Literally. You are rebellious daughters who are unworthy of exaltation. You must die. So you must perform and comply. You don't get to choose your mate. Again, the president of the church will choose for you, and it will be the old, crusty, perverted deviants in leadership that you will be assigned to. And so the one you love, he'll be treated like me. And so all of you Mormon boys who think that you're going to be on the inn to be rewarded with multiple wives, you guys are just dumb. The devil does not support his own. He uses you. And so the women are now just sex slaves. You have no rights. You have no privileges. You were allowed under the United States your rights to have a job, an education, a career, to be lesbian. But when the church takes over, you are now a breeder. That is all they want you for. And barefoot pregnant in the kitchen, as Benson used to scare women and anger women. And as a breeder, you can't be trusted with your agency. You have lost your privilege of agency under the United States, and therefore it has to be taken away, and you have to be forced into Lucifer's plan of happiness, because he knows what's best for you and how to exalt you. You must conform and comply. Do you understand this? You cannot leave. You have no agency. You have no rights. You are property. You are a sex slave. You are to breed. And I hear too many Mormon women think that it's a good thing because they can't get a good guy to date, and they think that a living prophet of God would be awesome. As the one woman who was involved with the Deseret Book Company, you guys know her name, I can't remember it off the top of my head. She was holding out for an apostle to marry, and he turned her down when his wife died. And so she's eternally single. You do not get sealed in the afterlife. At judgment, you do not get sealed. You have to do it on earth, or it ain't going to happen. And this is the doctrine. Polygamy must be practiced on earth not in the afterlife. Oakes was deceiving you people at the pulpit of conference because he doesn't want the United States to suspect that they're bringing it back. That was October 2019 that I've used in my clips before, where he's talking about the woman who wrote him a letter about, will I get my own home in the afterlife? It doesn't matter. You're a sex slave. You just take what you're given. And so, the first wife, the sister wives are to serve her and pleasure the husband. And so the husband wants nothing to do with the women. You're just there for his sexual needs. And he's the one who got to choose his first wife specifically, and the president gets to approve of all the others, but there's most likely going to be, hey, can you hook me up with this one? Yeah, okay. That type of thing going on. And you'll inevitably, because this is a corrupt system, you're going to get people who are going to be unhappy. Oh, you gave me the ugly one? No woman is ugly. All of you are beautiful. You're beautiful. But guys have that kind of thinking, which pains me when women think that they've got to appear differently so that they can attract a guy's attention. I just want to cry sometimes when I see what women do to mutilate their bodies. But nonetheless, this is the kind of horror you're going to experience. No more will you be educated. No more will you be allowed to get a job because you're going to be pregnant all the time. Once you hit the age of breeding, you're going to be paired up and bred. And so there's no reason for you to get an education. There's no reason for you to get a job. You're going to be busy 24/7 with babies and children. It is your responsibility to raise them and nurture them. And they'll use all of the little fluff wording to deceive you and keep you conformed and compliant and brainwashed into repeating it as a justification for why you are the way you are, and why you can't have your own agency, and why you can't get an education, and why you can't get yourself a career field. The extremes is what they love to do. You failed with your agency, so now we got to go to the other extreme and take it all away. There is no middle ground or third option in their kind of thinking, because women can be educated. They can work and do jobs that men do. We know this. You've proven yourself. You shouldn't have had to, because you used to do it anciently. But nonetheless, the abuse of patriarchal authority suppresses women. And the manner of clothing, you're going to be covered up. Whether it's the extreme that Islam does, it's unclear. But the man, because of the corruption, will be overly protective of his property, and thus trying all sorts of ways to protect and defend his property, and thus cover up the wife in public so that she's not seen. But when you have her as a breeder, she's home all the time, so there's no reason for her to go out. So, sister wives would often be the ones to go out and get the food or whatever from those who become eunuchs, men, to serve in the manual labor jobs as slaves. It's coming. Very quickly, it's coming. The end of the latter days is upon us. This is the final year. This is the day that shall burn as an oven. This is the day when the chief judge is going to die. Symbol, not necessarily Justice Roberts. We have 3 branches of government, remember? And the only presidents who have been assassinated in the United States were all of the liberal party. Lincoln, liberal party, called the Republicans. Liberal party. They were not the conservative party Republicans that we have today. Nobody wants to acknowledge this. There was a flip in the platforms after World War II. So, let me go over the paper, make sure I got it all, as this is 30 minutes. Not choose husbands, slave, and freedom, education, job, baby, love Sarah, Kimball, yeah, and so by knowing that the church is false, you should be able to catch on as to the reality of the nightmare that awaits us. Perverted, can't divorce, death penalty, breeding only, child brides. I didn't mention child brides. Nelson also, in those clips I've shown you in 2019, April, is dipping down into 11 years old. That's why he allowed 11-year-olds to now be allowed to go to the temple. This is why, is because he's setting it up for as low as 11 years old. And so it cringed me to no end back when Nelson did the singing performance for Christmas with Claire Crosby. Dear God, he was grooming her. And this is what the church is doing. Anybody who knows about sexual predators and their method of grooming should be shocked and horrified if they are paying attention to conference. And nobody is. I'm the only one. What the hell? It's just a nightmare what they're doing. Because you can't. You have to have polygamous wives. And so men have the need. And when a woman is pregnant or isn't feeling right, a man has to go to someone else. And so, of necessity, men has to get more and more and more and more, and thus has to dip into child brides. This is the animal nature of man. And the prophets are going to deceive you and say that this is godly. But, yeah. Okay. So, this uncomfortable video is now at an end. So, I mean, are you just going to let it happen? Or are you going to step up like the one bishop who sacrificed his membership to protect LDS children? Or me, who sacrificed his whole life for you guys? And one more thing I forgot to add. Oaks is next. Do you understand how horrifying this is? Oaks is the big one who's pushing for polygamy. Nelson is, he's weak. I can see a lot of Oaks and his influence on Nelson, even though Nelson is the decider. Oaks is the one going around talking about polygamy and restoring it, saying that the church are victims of the United States and that you need to trust in the Lord, which is the code word for polygamy. And so when the youth had their Trust in the Lord program for the year of 2022, that was the big grooming session for the Mormon girls. So yeah, Oaks is about to die. It's unclear how long he has left, but Oaks is next if the church wins and they don't get locked up for their crimes. And apparently everybody's covering up for the church to allow this to happen, because I'm being exterminated here. This is what they're doing to the homeless. There are no poor in Zion. So you got to eliminate us so that the prophecy can come to pass. Likewise for polygamy.